We're just seeing people filing in. We're going to go ahead and start in just a minute, but welcome to those of you that are here. Let me take this extra minute up front to just introduce myself and a little housekeeping for our HBSWA programming. So you are going to be in the Zoom group, and we would love it if you could rename your Zoom box and put your name, your degree, and year, just so people can kind of spot their classmates, see what the mix of people we have from different programs is, and also if you can fit it your location. We're going to do our introductions for our speakers today, and then we will also have a Q&A at the end, and we will have an opportunity during the middle if we spot some questions coming in that are applicable for the conversation. We will do that as well. So I am Elizabeth Crable. I'm the president of HBSWA. I'm MBA 1999, Section A. So I'm really happy to be here today. You will see that as we go through our presentation and we have a little bit of question in the middle for our speakers, and then some Q&A at the end. We'll also be providing follow-up information for anyone who would like to get more information about our speakers or about what we talked about today. So we are very happy to have you here. All right, it looks like we are gaining critical mass. So I'm going to go ahead and begin our program. So welcome. We are very happy to have our HBS Spotlight session today with you. HBS Spotlight is a part of the HBS Women's Association programming where we like to take the opportunity to touch base back with the mothership and say, hey, we all came through HBS. Let's make sure that we all are kind of staying in tune with what's happening on campus because as we know, things change. It's a very dynamic school that we came through. And we really like the opportunity to have speakers like Vicki Good, who is here today with us, and her speaker, Helen Vade, because they are going to do the Spotlight series today on women on boards and thinking about the preparation that it takes for a board career and tying that into some resources that you may have heard of or you may not be familiar with, but we're going to learn about them today through the HBS Executive Education program. So by way of overview, I just am so happy to have Vicki Good here with us today. Vicki is the Senior Portfolio Director for HBS Executive Education. I have known Vicki for years. I have actually attended a few executive education programs, including what we're going to talk about today, the board preparation program, Women on Boards, and some other board preparation that Vicki will tell us about. But Vicki has a very long track record with focusing on executive women and what are the needs to educate us and prepare us and connect us into networks that will help us be in our best path if you are interested in learning about board service as part of your professional and personal journey. So Vicki is going to speak to us today about the programs that are available, but also what's behind the programs, why those programs exist, and how they can plug you in to this pathway. This is not going to be the last event that we do on boards. We've had another couple events in the past, and we get a lot of interest in boards, and we're starting to take content. So if you are going through the presentation and have questions, please put them in the chat. We also may have the opportunity to just have you raise your hands and take some questions in our Q&A session. But every question you ask, if we do not get to it today, it also goes into helping us formulate our future programming. So thank you for anything that you would like to contribute. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Vicki. And Vicki, I'll let you speak also to Helen's introduction because I also am very happy to have Helen here, who I know through the Women on Boards Network. And we will put your slides up and have you start to take us through the information today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Can everyone see my slides yet? Actually, let me give it another minute.
They are up now. I see them. So hopefully everyone is on.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much and your team for inviting me here. I am so honored and so happy to engage with this organization, which is just such a wonderful organization. I was telling Elizabeth, it makes me smile whenever I see the LinkedIn profiles of new members and all the work that you're doing. So thank you for this opportunity. I am going to talk with you about exec ed in general. And then I'll talk about our governance portfolio of programs. And then before I go into a deep dive of women on boards, I am going to introduce you all to Helen Vade, who is an HBS alum and Women on Boards past participant who can share her participant experience. And then Helen actually has a board meeting. So I'm going to try to talk really quickly in the beginning so we have plenty of time for Helen. So executive education, did the presentation go to the next slide?
Yes,
It
it
did.
did.
So what I often hear from our alumni, especially our MBA alumni, is that when they were here on campus, it was an intense 2-year period. And people didn't really have time or the bandwidth to really know about executive education. It was over in that east side of campus over there. And it was actually, it probably wasn't that big. It depends when you came. But it now is a very robust part of Harvard Business School. We have 13,000 executives coming through our programs every year. And so of those 13, they come to one of these 4 types of programs. And I'll speak super quickly about the slides because you can read them, but I'll just speak quickly. Our long programs, like our advanced management program, our owner president management program, general management program, PLD program, those are the long programs. They're all modular now, and they are designed to smooth career transition points. So if someone is a business unit president and they're going into the C-suite, they would be good for AMP. And then the other programs target different transition points. Then we have focus programs, which are shorter in duration, super specific. It's about upskilling. By the way, all of our programs now are either on campus, virtual, or both hybrid. So our short focus programs, maybe 3 days on campus, but if it's offered virtually, it may be 1 session a week for 10 weeks or something like that. The Women on Boards program and the governance programs are part of the focus program portfolio. And then we have regional leadership programs, which was started by Professor Krishna Palapu many years ago. And those are programs that are also longer in length, but they're very regional in terms of the participants they draw in terms of the cases that are taught, and in terms of the research that's brought to them. It started with the senior executive program in India, and now there's one in Africa, China, and the Middle East. And then lastly, we have what we call internally our custom programs, which is when an organization comes to us and says that they need a program for a major initiative that they're starting, either a merger integration or entering a new market or changing culture. And they have 150 people that they'd like to go through, perhaps in groups of 50 over the next 3 years. That was actually our traditional model. Now with HBS Online, we have a much more cohesive solution for organizations if they want to go from the C-suite all the way down to the front line. And that's something that we're working on now. I have to mention this because I hear from alumni often that they're not aware of this. Alumni receive a 30% discount on executive education open enrollment programs. Open enrollment are the first 3 buckets on the screen. It's not the custom programs, but it's programs that you apply to. There's an admissions committee. Every program has its own admissions committee. Applications are reviewed. People are either accepted, redirected, or perhaps offered to explore other things outside of HBS. So this slide I'm just going to speak to super quickly. It just speaks to the power of HBS that everyone on this call is so familiar with. Something happens when people get together with something about the campus, right? That people get together in a beautiful campus. They're stepping out of their day-to-day life, and they're in a growth mindset. They want to learn, and they're with faculty who are wonderful educators, researchers, and communicators. And they're with other people who may be very different from them in terms of their culture or background or functional expertise, yet all want to learn and grow. And that, I think, is the magic of HBS, is the people that convene, combined with the campus, combined with the faculty. combined with the programs. So within those 4 buckets, we're going to focus today on our focus programs. We offer 60 different programs. Some are offered twice a year. Most are offered once a year, covering these different topics here that you see. And of course, we're going to address the governance programs. However, I wanted to highlight that there are 3 women leader programs. In addition to Women on Boards, which was started back in 2016 with Boris Groyberg and Lynn Payne and myself, we have the Women's Leadership Forum that is now run by Lakshmi Ramarajan. For years, it was run by Jan Hammond. And then a few years ago, Linda Hill started the Advancing Women of Color in Leadership. So those are the programs. Now, of the governance programs, we offer 6. The 4 in red are for people who are existing board members, typically of public companies or established privately held companies. And there's making corporate boards more effective, there's compensation committees, and the audit committee program. They're offered each twice a year. They're very popular. And if you complete all 3 within 3 years, you will receive the corporate director certificate. Now, the nice thing about that is if you have the corporate director certificate, or I believe attended Making Corporate Boards More Effective, you will be invited back to a refresher program, which is offered every other year. It's called the Advanced Corporate Director Seminar, run by the faculty chairs, Lynn Payne and Suraj Srinivasan. And it's designed to address the latest issues, challenges, research in corporate governance. So they offer it every couple of years because, of course, it takes time to do research and write cases. But it's very, very current. And this was actually the request of past participants who had attended 1 or all 3 of these programs. So those are the 4 programs designed for people who are current directors. For those who aspire to be on a public board, we have the Preparing to be a Corporate Director or the Women on Boards program. And what's different about the Women on Boards program is the Women on Boards program addresses those unique challenges of being a woman and trying to get on a board. How the path, how you navigate it has to be thought more strategically, more differently, to be honest. So it addresses that challenge where the Preparing to be Corporate Directors well, I shouldn't say just, but talks about good governance, talks about having board ready skills. That's also discussed in the Women on Boards program. But the Women's on Board program talks about the navigation of getting on board. In addition, what Boris had really hoped to create many, many years ago was just a network of incredible women leaders. All the women who come to Women on Boards must be recommended by a board member. So it's a highly vetted program. And I'll talk more about what has resulted because of that. So again, the idea was back in 2015, when we first started meeting to design this program, is to be run the first time in 2016, was to equip the female leaders with the skills, the knowledge, and the confidence to step into the boardroom and to be ready to contribute in a positive way. That was our goal, to equip the women so they're ready to hit the ground running. And so I'm going to talk a bit more in detail about the Women on Boards program, the curriculum, the profile of the participants, what it looks like. But at this point, I want to pivot and introduce you to, and by the way, there's Elizabeth in, in that picture from the first year, 2016 year of Women on Boards. And you may remember Elizabeth, that was Nithanoria Adine, who came to speak to everyone because it was a huge deal at the time. It was really, we were very, very happy to be able to get this program off the ground and running. So at this point, I would love for you all to meet Helen Vade, who is an alum of the school. She is a 2019 Women on Boards past participant. She is an amazing leader. She's an amazing woman, and she's a wonderful partner to me in many, many ways. She's on our website. She has over 25 years of global leadership across digital, tech, and consumer businesses. She was the CEO of Foundry Brands and guided it through many different omni digital brands. But before that, she was the global chief customer officer at Pizza Hut. She's currently on the board of Abercrombie, which, as we all know, is having an incredible resurgence, and also of Stuart Tile. What I so respect and admire about Helen is she has incredibly high IQ and EQ. She puts people first at the center and then sets a vision in front of them, what is possible. And it's amazing the work that she's done. So Helen, thank you for joining us before I know you have to run to your
No,
next.
thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And
So,
don't believe everything Vicky says. That's the only time I'll ever say that.
no, that's not true. So I wanted to, I thought it was important that the participants hear from someone who went through the program as opposed to the director. So can you just share with us, back in 2019, you attended Women on Boards.
Yeah.
Can you share what was going on in your career and your thinking at the time that caused you to apply to the program?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, in 2019, I was at Pizza Hut, leading their operations and technology globally, and I knew I was picked for one of those high potential internal tracks. And they said, "What? Just pick whatever it is that you want to invest in yourself to learn to do something." And my thinking was, what is it that I today don't get to do on a day-to-day basis that will actually stretch my skill set and capability? And I knew that as an operator, I was very, very good at what I was doing today. I had a ton to learn, but there was things that I had done for the last 20 plus years of my life. But I had, having attended board meetings and been on the executive side of the board, I was like, it'd be really interesting to see what I could do on the other side of the table, so to say, because it's a very different mindset you have to have as a board member than you have as an operator in the room. And the truth be told, I said to myself, I'm not sure as an operator, I would have the ability to switch my mindset to stop asking operations questions and be a more strategic thought partner. And the truth is that unless you do these things, you never get to know them well and do them well. I didn't know if I was going to be a good board member or be able to enjoy that role even. And a lot of time I ask people all the time, why do you want to be a board member? And a lot of the time it's like, because I think I should do that. And that's probably a terrible reason to do it. So you have to sit down and I have to reflect and say, why do I actually want to do on the other side of the table? And I realized that I wanted to get out of just the tactical and do more strategic things. But I didn't have the ability to think about what would a day in the life of a board member look like? What would be the kind of challenges that I would have to face? How would I address those questions? What are the frameworks and constructs I need to think about? And I just knew I had to go get some sort of a kickoff formal training to be able to get into that mindset. And that's why I frankly applied to HBS. I looked at all the programs and I said, who out there can give me a really full-rounded view? I love the case study method because I think that's just a practical way of learning things as opposed to a lot of theoretical conversations, because I didn't want to be in a room and be lectured at. I wanted to have real life, hands-on what if scenario conversations. And HBS just met all of those requirements. And frankly, it was the best thing I ever did, because frankly, I walked out of them much clearer about the why and what kind of businesses that I had gone in with. So for me, it was just the best way to think about what to do. But you have to sit down and say, why do I want to do this before you decide to do any program, frankly.
So already I'm going off script because what
I'm
you
sorry.
just said.
Sorry.
No, because what you just said was so interesting to me about you had had such success as an operator, yet you wanted to learn more about what was like to be a director. Now that you've been a director of a couple of well-known companies, what did you not know then?
A couple of things. First is that playbooks that we build as an operator do not apply in a boardroom, because we think we know all the answers. We go in the boardroom and say, hey, we've done this before. I had this problem when I was doing my job, and this is how I solved it. And All I need to do is when I go into a boardroom and tell the other people how to do it because I know how to do this. The truth of the matter is you don't, because playbooks are not portable. It depends on the company, it depends on the environment, it depends on macroeconomic factors, it depends on the talent in that room. So you're not orchestrating a solution as a board member. You're making sure you're understanding the right problem. And and frankly, that's why most board members in the first board roles are pretty bad at it because they go in and try and be a better executive in the room than a good board member. And so to me, this whole switch about I have to ask questions and not give answers it was a really big pivot to
Yeah.
do. And it's just really hard. Actually, the truth is it's really hard. We all say we can do it. No, your instincts take over. You think, I can solve this. And that's a terrible
Yeah.
idea.
Well, it's hard not to want to fix it when you have very strong
Yeah, that's
ideas
right.
about how to
That's right.
fix it, right?
That's right.
So
That's exactly right.
you talked about why you came to Women on Boards. Can you share and what your goals were for attending the program? Can you share what part of the program had the biggest impact on you?
I think HBS folks will, all of us will relate to that, meeting the protagonist in the room, actually talking to someone real who's been there as opposed to just a piece of paper. Faculty member who's done this over and over and talked to multiple real, people who've actually gone and understood this problem and broken it down. And to me, it was just, and frankly, most importantly, the other people in the room. You learn as much as from the person sitting next to you than the person standing in front of you. And the ability for us to go out of the room and have that conversation and say, how did you do it? Why did you think about this problem? Having those discussion in your living groups. You guys have all experienced it. Frankly, it's no different than any other HBS program. It's what makes it HBS, right? It's the fact that you get to have this really rich conversations with incredibly smart people around you all the time. And then it makes you think about things differently. And you're like, oh my God, I just not considered it. And I had in my living group a person who grew up in law and a person who grew up in marketing, a person who was in sales, and they give you this well-rounded view of a problem that you never sometimes have a chance to think about. And space and time. You take a break and say, I want to think about this. I am running every single day, 200 things, and just giving yourself a week for just saying, hey, this is why I want to do this. It is almost personal time to think about the why.
I had an alum once tell me when they came back to campus for a program many, many years, like 30 years after they were at HBS, they said being physically back on the campus, when they went into the executive education facility, into the bedroom, he said, I immediately became a student again.
I know,
My
totally agree.
everything just totally switched.
Totally.
Someone, I believe Debbie asked, were there specific skills that you learned from the program? Now, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the faculty that teach in Women on Boards are all board members. They
Yeah.
all have public board experience. But can you speak to some of the skills that you learned?
Yeah, I mean, look, the kind of things you have to ask as good questions in an audit committee or a comp committee are very specific things you need to think about. The regulatory elements of things, right? What is your fiduciary responsibility, the duty of care and loyalty, all of those things that frankly are words, but you don't know how they come into action. Like, what does that actually mean in a boardroom, right? When somebody says you have duty of care, right? What are the kind of questions and challenges you face where you have to go back to that and say, as a board member, I cannot do this, right? You all know what is right or wrong. Nobody needs to teach you that. But how do you handle that when you have a difficult situation? It's like when we had the whole scenario, this is public knowledge, so I can share it at Abercrombie with Mike Jeffries' case coming through the BBC Panorama. It was a problem that we had never faced before. We had a situation where, as a board, we had to decide, are we going to go and be very clear about how we feel about this whole thing, or are we going to take a certain line in front of the media? And it was crystal clear that we were going to be very clear that this is a situation that the board doesn't condone. We were using pretty emotional words in on our press release, like we are disgusted by this news. And a lot of times, those kind of things you can only do in real time. And you don't learn that unless you understand some of these really difficult dilemmas that a board can face. You wish you never have to, but if you have to, you know what tools to use, and those tools were discussed in the room. So the skills are hard to explain because you implicitly learn them in the room, You make notes about them, you think about them, but those toolkits with you when you need to use it, and comes out. And it's just hard to explain because otherwise it's just another book you read. And we all read a lot of books, but it's not the same thing. So I feel like I was much better, still terrible at handling everything, but much better at it than I would have been had I not done this, for sure, for sure.
As you mentioned, some of the cases that are discussed in Women on Boards are ethical cases, or they have an
100%.
ethical foundation, for sure.
Yeah.
There was one I know on an audit firm. There was one on firing a member because of something else. I don't want to give away too much, but but
Yeah.
it's you have a safe space
That's right.
to discuss these highly ethical issues that boards are dealing with, but also that people have strong opposing views about, right?
That's
And to
exactly
be
right.
able to vet that through that process,
Mhm.
I think is really important. So
Yeah.
I think we have you for 3 more minutes before
Yes,
you have
sorry.
to go.
Yeah,
So
sorry about this, guys. I'm in a board meeting that's about to start, so I apologize. I have to. I'm at steward title in Houston right now, so I need to just get back in the room. And by the way, Elizabeth knows this. I'm very happy to talk to anybody who wants to do a follow up, have a chat, and say, hey, what do I think about this? I'm not sure I'll help, but I'm always happy to share my experience and see how it can apply to you. But please feel free to give my contacts out to anybody in the room who thinks would be helpful to know.
oh, you're very kind to say that, because she doesn't sleep, so that helps.
It's overrated,
So-
Vicky. It's overrated. Sleep is so
It's
overrated. I'm kidding.
overrated.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It is not. I wish I could sleep more. I will say one thing though. My request to all of you would be, before, if you are seriously considering this, there is a session that I have done. Elizabeth has seen it in one of our symposiums. Is sit down and write down the 5 whys you want to be a board member. Right? Write down, I want to be a board member because of, because I care about X. Why do you care about X? Because I think it will lead to Y. Why will it lead to Y? Just do that 5 times. Write down the real reason why you want to be on a board. Because when somebody asks you, you're interviewing, and say, why do you want to be on a board? The answer can be because, oh, I was really interested in a company. Because that is not what the other person wants to hear. It's like, why exactly do you want to be on a board, and what purpose, what cause? Also write down what your superpowers are. And it's nothing to do with the industry. It's nothing to do with your experience or background or function. It's about what is it that you do better, that you, when you add to that group of people, you will make that group better. Because it's not about the individual. A board is a team. And you have to figure out how you fit in that team. Are you a defense player, offense player, whatever sports analogy you want to use, but what role will you play? And write your board value prop. Write down the press release that they will write for you if you join the board. They would say, we are so excited to have Elizabeth on our board because what she will do for us is about 2, 3. Just like the Amazon press releases, write one for yourself. And it really helps. Um, and only do things you care about. Don't jump on the first thing. With my 2 cents worth, don't do that. It's not worth it. You're on it for the next 10 years of your life potentially, if it's public.
Yeah.
If it's not public, you can probably. So just really think about why you want to be on that board.
Yeah, that is such good advice, because I remember a couple of sessions where a faculty member, young me at the time, was saying, you go where you fit, you go where you're going to add value, you don't go with the first
Yeah.
offer. And to be honest,
Absolutely.
I remember there aren't many women, but I remember a couple of women who said, you know what, this isn't for me. I discovered this really isn't for me. And that's great.
That is okay.
That's, yeah. So I know you have to go. I can tell.
All right. Listen, guys, thank you very much.
Thank
Gotta
you,
go.
Helen.
Bye.
A big hug and a big thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Mhm. Okay, so now I would like to pivot to talk a little bit more about the program. And by the way, there are, as I mentioned earlier, Elizabeth has been through the program. I know that there were some other people who had signed up who were, thank you, Elizabeth, who have also been to the program that can share their perspective. But I'm going to go over, again, there's Elizabeth. It wasn't on purpose, Elizabeth, I promise you, that you're in these pictures. We just had a really good photo shoot that year. So the program started in 2016. We started planning in 2015. The first iteration was in 2016, 67 women, and attendance doubled. Within 2 years, we've had over 900 participants. And of all of the programs that Harvard Business School Executive Education offers, this program has had the most HBS alumni. 170 female alumni have come through this program over the years. So this is a program we're very, very happy that our alumni community, that it resonates with them. And of course, it makes sense, right? The wonderful thing about this program that is incredibly unique is that people who attend the Women on Boards program are invited to join this organization called Women Execs on Boards. And I'll speak a little bit more about that later in this talk. But what I'll share with you is the first year that program ran, that group of 67 women, they felt that this group of women was unlike any other professional organization they belonged to. It was unique. The caliber of the people was so high, and that they did not want to let it go. So they would have monthly phone calls initially, and then they decided to actually formally organize, develop a structure, and they became an organization called Women Execs on Boards. And each year, they invite the next cohort to join. And as you can imagine, you pull together 400 or 500 driven, accomplished women. This organization is incredible. It is unlike any organization I know. Their goal is to support one another getting on boards, but they have an education sector. They have circles based on geography, industry. They will tell each other about board opportunities, and they'll help you prepare for it. They'll do mock interviews. I mean, the support, it's like a giving circle. It really is. It's an incredible, incredible group of women. And what's happened over the years is this organization, because more and more people are learning about it, they learn about the organization before they learn about women on boards. And they're like, how do we get to be part of this? And they run an annual symposium that is unlike anything I've ever seen. But I'll talk a little bit more about it. But this is not run by Harvard. This is run by the women who have come through the program. And so back in 2015, and this has not changed over the years, when Boris and I were meeting, and we brought Lynn in actually after a few months, these were the learning objectives. Understand how corporate boards work, help participants develop board-ready skills. But again, this is what's different about the Women on Boards program. It's about navigating the process, but we also wanted to broaden their network. We had no idea that they were going to take this and run with it like they did. And we also, actually, unlike other programs like this group, we have networking receptions every night because the women so much, and I think those of us on the call can appreciate this, there's value of our time. And while they're there, they want to get the most value from their time. And that means meeting as many other women in the program. So there's receptions every evening. No other program does that. And we are very, very fortunate that the Women Exec on Boards organization exists to keep this network thriving. There's another one coming up. Of course, this is one of the programs that's only run once a year. It's always the week after Thanksgiving, Monday through Friday. And we do, in addition to cases, there are panels, there's exercises about getting to know one another more deeply, learning groups. It's what many of you have come to expect from HBS, in that we strive to make this as enriching a period of time for you as possible. So in addition to the upskilling, there's more than that, right? There's the broadening of thought, and there's the connectivity with other people that is equally important. I thought it would be important to give you just a sample of what the cohort looks like. This was last year's cohort. This is citizenship. And about 42% are working outside the US, average years of experience is 20. And as you can see, we have people from 30 different countries attending this program. This is the business region, different than citizenship. So about 2/3 are working in North America. And this is the breakdown of with Europe, Asia, and Central America, South America, and Africa, and the Middle East, and Central America as well. So this is the business region. So many more people working in the US than are US citizens. And then these are the industries. So high amount of people from professional services and financial services. But again, a broad array, and that's the richness of the program. When you bring people together who have unique perspectives, unique skills, unique experience to add to yours, that's one of HBS's, I think, just something we're very, very lucky to have, is the convening power. So you're put into these learning groups, probably very similar to your sections and learning groups if you were in the MBA program, where we try to maximize diversity. And our hope is that as people study and prepare for the cases, not that they agree, they won't even agree on what the issue is, but that they just see things differently than they did when they were just reading the cases on their own. Here is the schedule from 2024. It's somewhat different this year, but we're still finalizing this year, so I wasn't comfortable with adding it yet. But there's one case, actually, this year there'll be 2 sessions that first day. We're starting earlier at 2:15 because we were able to get a great guest speaker named Ann Fudge. And I don't know if you know her, but I'll speak to her in a little bit. It's a jam-packed week. And again, we find that that's what the participants want. They want to get everything they can out of their time that they're spending away from their work and away from their families. So that, as you can see, day 2, we did a case on the audit committee. That's an ethical case. Legal duties of directors, leading AI. This is a topic that is come up often across our governance portfolio. And then they finished the day with the leadership journey exercise, which is getting to know one another on a deeper level. You'll see there are cases on day 3, 4, and 5, but on day 3, Lynn Payne brings in a panel of experienced board directors to talk about their experience being a woman on a board. Many of them are on multiple boards, and they will stay and have dinner and meet with the participants afterwards. And then on Thursday evening, Women Exec on Boards comes back. Again, I mentioned to you, it's like a giving circle. They come back and they share, because they were sitting in the seats of the participants a few years ago. Many of them are now on boards. They share what their advice for what participants should do upon conclusion of the program. And this was something the first couple of years we were getting evaluation feedback, and people were very happy with the program, but they said, now what do we do? Now what do we do? And Women Exec on Boards has put together a wonderful presentation to say this is what they advise. And they also stay for dinner, and it's an opportunity to learn more about the organization, but also just learn from the wisdom of women who were sitting in those seats just a short time ago. The faculty, of course, as alum, you know many of the faculty. I think you will agree with me that this is incredible faculty, incredible senior faculty, starting with Boris and Lynn, who are the co-chairs. John Coates from the law school talks about the legal responsibilities of board members. Aisha Day, she's from the accounting and control unit. She talks about relationships with the auditors and the audit committee. Joshua Margolis, I'm sure many of you know him. He is actually bringing in a guest this year to talk about dilemmas in the boardroom. Kristen Mugford, she is not able to be with us this year, but she has been with us last year. Deb Spar, of course. Many of you know Deb Spar. She's teaching 2 sessions this year. Siraj, he teaches 2 or 3 sessions as well. And then Sidal Neely, I don't know if you know this, she is now the chair of the MBA program. She will do a case on AI in the boardroom. So amazing, amazing senior faculty, all who are on corporate boards. And then I wanted to share with you just some of the guest speakers over the years. This is just an example of some of the ones we've had. This is for the panel that Lynn Payne does on the Wednesday evening. But in this case, Ann Fudge, who's on the bottom left column, she's going to be speaking to the 2025 cohort on the first night. But these are women who have just incredible board experience, and they come and they give their time. I mean, again, they don't just come and do their session, they stay for a reception, they stay for dinner. Often they're giving out their contact information. They're wonderful givers to us, to our community. And again, this is just a sample. There's many, many more. And then the women exec on boards. This is the incredible organization. Elizabeth knows it well. I don't know if Judy's on the call, but Judy knows it well. This is the organization that is about empowering women in the most collaborative, supportive way imaginable. They now have this annual symposium. Elizabeth was very involved, Elizabeth and Judy, I think, last year in New York. It was unlike anything I've ever seen in terms of the people they bring in, the panelists, the guest speakers, the opportunities are just incredible. I just came back from this year's symposium that was in California. Again, just an amazing learning deep dive and talking to people who have a lot of experience and wisdom to share. And right now they're at over 400 members. This is a picture of the women exec on boards at last year's symposium in New York. I know that Elizabeth mentioned there are a lot of pictures from last week's. I just wasn't fast enough to get them in this presentation. But this is the women. Can you imagine all of these women came to New York for 3 days because of the power and the opportunities that come from being together. And then this is just a picture in our last class last year, which was the 128. I'm sure you're all familiar with Aldrich Hall. There we are. We're all squeezing into Aldrich Hall, trying to get a quick selfie. And I think that's it. So I am really, really very pleased to talk to you about something that I'm sure you can tell it's something I'm very, very passionate about. I'm happy to talk with any of you. I've put my email address up there as well as our Exec Ed Program Advising Team's email address. Happy to talk offline, talk with you about this program. And again, I want to just remind you that you do get a discount because that's something people often are not aware of. So at that point, I'm going to stop my presentation. And Elizabeth, excuse me, are there any questions or what should we do at this point?
We do have questions, and I mean, every time we talk about this, it brings back so many memories, and these two streams of the education side and then the people who come out of the education programs. But let me start with a couple of the questions that we had in the chat. And also, if you're still on Astrid, I saw you had your hand up. Sorry, we'll circle back and come back if you still have your question. But Susan Pritchett had a great question about is this program, and I think this also speaks to the question of women on boards and other programs at HBS that may be board focused, but why this one is particular is Susan's question is this program also appropriate for non-public or private boards and also aspiring board members? I think that's something. Would you like to speak to that? Oh, I can speak to my experience. What do you think, Vicki?
Or why don't you start? Because I've been talking a lot and then I'll chime in afterwards.
Okay, well,
Hi,
you
I'm
are the
also
one who
here.
reviews all our applications, so we'll come back to you on that. But specifically, I think, Susan, what I would say is the answer is it is appropriate for, and I'm speaking of women on board specifically that Vicky's outlining and that I did in 2016, the inaugural class. Women on boards is perfect for anyone who is thinking seriously about board service. And that includes people who are already on corporate boards, private boards, or public boards, who are looking to hone their skills, really understand about the world of governance. Many people got on boards through personal relationships and never had board training. And this is an opportunity to kind of formalize and take your training to an HBS level so that you can start to think about things about governance, risk assessment, all of the fiduciary responsibility, the things that Helen was talking about. But it also is a great program for aspiring board members because it is a case methods study method. We also talk with all of the people that Vicky mentioned who come through and many more. They are talking about real life cases. So if you are an aspiring board member and has not really figured out or are just starting your journey, this is a great opportunity. And I'll use my own self as an experience. So I came to Women on Boards because I had just been appointed CEO of an Irish company. And I was coming into the role, I was reporting into the board, and the board who had hired me into the role and I were both very education focused. So they sponsored me to go into this program. Now, sponsoring me into the program was not because they were trying to send me out to get on other boards. It was because they said, we as our new CEO, we want to kind of go through this process with you, and we want you to bring us back best practices and tell us what is the way that we should be working together. So I came in as a sitting CEO and joined the board as an executive director, but I also was coming in for education about how to bring a board up to speed. Now, there are also a lot of aspiring directors who are operating executives, very high level women that come into this program, as Vicky said, from all over the world, but they are starting to think about what would be the right board situations for their personal journey. Now, some people are looking for corporate boards and they would like maybe a Fortune 500 board and that kind of high level, high profile board. But every company around the world, if you think of the millions of companies that there are boards of millions of profiles. And I think this program really helps women to understand what are boards and what are the types of boards? What does a nonprofit board look like versus a corporate board? What does a private board look like versus a public board? What does it mean to bring other women into board service when you're maybe the only woman sitting on a board of, 20 men and one woman? How do you go through that process? So I think that this program, I feel, is great for women aspiring, private boards, corporate boards who are public, or even not-for-profit boards. Now, there are some programs that specify that focus specifically on not-for-profit. I think this program actually is richer because it goes above and beyond and it kind of draws contrast between the different types of boards. And I came away with an incredible interest in understanding what the opportunities were for me beyond the current situation. And for the last 9 years, I have actually gotten on some more boards, nonprofit. I have been on advisory boards, and I have had a much better filter for understanding what type of commitment I'm making and what they're going to be looking for me. So, Vicky, anything to add to that? I've got a couple other questions too.
No, I think you covered it wonderfully. It's for aspiring board members, whether it's aspiring to be on a public corporate board or aspiring to be on a privately held company board. And often, to your point, Elizabeth, and it's funny that I'm, as always, impressed that you saw this so early on, but I wasn't aware of it. The people who are on boards were coming to the program. We found out after they were admitted that they're actually on corporate boards because they did want to discuss the frameworks and understand how their boards could be working better. So it's really for aspiring and current board members. And we're seeing more people who are board members come to the program.
Now, I have one
Hi,
question here.
Vicky.
Haya has just asked for requirements for applying. How many years of experience normally would a woman need to apply for the Women on Boards program?
So most of the women who come to the program have over 20 years. These are women who are really accomplished senior level executives. Of course, everyone needs to be recommended by a board director, but we are with everything, there's exceptions, right? And there are people who are, you may remember it, I think it was your class, Elizabeth, if not the year after, that had much less experience, but they came from a really emerging technology company that they had risen super quick and they were having a lot of board interactions, and they're actually on the boards of some companies now. So it used to be over 20 years, but we really do look at the individual, what they've done and what others can learn from them, what they can contribute to other people's learning.
Hi, Vicky, it's Judy. I just wanted to chime in. Hi. Actually off camera because it's 1 a.m. in Singapore, but I had to be on here to support you and to have a big shout out to what you're doing and encouraging more diversity and cognitive diversity on boards, which is absolutely critical. So Elizabeth and I were both in the 2016 inaugural class. And we were both co-chairs of last year's New York Symposium. So we worked together for 9 years. And I just want to share, and I know Vicky knows this story, but Elizabeth may not. I actually was an accidental board member, and I was the first ever female board member as part of the Shell group of companies in Japan. And that was an incredible experience. And only after that, the 2016 class was in, as Vicky said, after kind of Thanksgiving. And so I did the class because I wanted to learn more about it because I had originally not even thought of being on boards. I was 45. I was in my executive career. I have my own company. And then through the work that I was doing with Shell as my client, they asked me to be an executive director. And I realized after doing that work that I needed to have a framework, as Elizabeth and Vicky was saying. I needed to learn more. I felt that this was an extension of my professional career. It's not as if you necessarily have to think of it as the second phase. I actually think more and more women executives at the senior most level, at C-suite level, need to have an outside in look in terms of their experience on the executive level. And if they could see it from the other side of the table, what stakeholder management requires, what they need to think about as they're moving into the C-suite and CEO positions in their firm, that they need to understand what shareholders think about, what are the issues at the board level, the decision-making at the board level. And this really hones you out from the other perspective of leadership. And so that's what I'm sharing with many of the women. And even if this is no longer, board service is no longer, I'm retiring and I just want to keep my toe in the water, right? Absolutely not. This is around honing your leadership at the topmost levels of decision making, and anything that comes up to the board, as you know, are the more complicated, intractable issues. These are the issues that are the combinations of big capital deployment, big changes in corporate structure, big changes in market, as well as talent development. And it's always where it's not an easy answer. And then the board needs to deliberate and come out and make trade-offs in uncertainty. And you're actually using your best judgment and honing your business acumen and judgment by hearing many views of the issue and coalescing into a decision that you move forward. And so I think it's fabulous. I think it's incredible leadership training. It is totally Harvard in terms of what Harvard stands for around leadership. And I really encourage all of you to take this class or take any one of the 6 classes in whatever order that Vicky says. And it really means a lot because you have our original batch, 2016, and the subsequent batches have gone through us. They come back for other courses. It's not as if it's one and done. They'll come back for the other programs that Lynn does and then they'll go through the certificate or they'll go and do other courses in governance. In addition to NACD courses or SID courses or their country, I think we have a global community here. So there are, national directors institutes in every country, and they will go for that courses as well. So you never stop training because there is just so much going on and in what the board activity is. And it really is cutting across corporates, nonprofits, foundations. One of the big segments that I had in New York Symposium was a whole segment on foundation boards because I sit on DBS board in Singapore, and we made a commitment to give away $1 billion over 10 years. And I'm on the board of the foundation. And to do that actually was a fabulous thing because we know we are going to help a lot of people in the communities that we serve in the countries that we are operating in. However, it scared the hell out of me from a governance point of view, right? Because it's not easy to give away $100 million a year because you have to do it with good governance, with a good framework, with understanding how foundations work, with understanding how you actually partner and develop metrics and performance metrics for foundation boards. And that's just another aspect of different kind of board work that you may be asked to serve on. Anyway, so I just want to chime in and thank you, Vicki. This is a really amazing session.
Thank you,
Thank
Judy. It's so great to have you on too.
Yeah, thank you, Judy, for sharing that perspective. That's really important. So I appreciate that. And thank you for staying up until 1 a.m. for this.
Good. I have another quick question. I think we can fit in one or two more. I can
Sure.
even answer one of them because it's about the MBA program. But Jill, you asked a very simple and I think important question is that if you are an HBS MBA, is this learning really incremental to what you already did with your MBA program? So I'm class of 99, and of course the program has developed over the years, but I can say that from my personal experience, zero of what I learned in Women on Boards was presented in my MBA program. Absolutely none of it. None of it. We never learned about boards. It wasn't the focus of the MBA program. Now, I would probably assume that as, boards have grown in interest, and Vicki, you can maybe speak to it, but I think that you can go into this program feeling very secure that you are now entering a universe where boards is the language of conversation, not operational C-level executive or private equity investment or the things that we really focus on in the MBA program. I think it's fairly different. So I think you can have confidence this is a different investment. I think Astrid, you asked about the cost of the program, and while you were in there, Vicki, I looked it up really quickly. I put the link in. It looks like this year's 2025 program is $14,500 for the full program, but don't forget the
Correct.
discount. So you get $4,300 off because you have come through an MBA program or if you are an HBS alum, you will get that 30% that Vicki talked about, which I think was very important in my decision to do it back in the beginning. And then one other, Vicki, I'd love for you to answer this is background. So talking about professional services, you had your chart of the different backgrounds. Have you found that to change over time as the program has gone along? And do you feel like you mentioned that technology background, what would you say to people who are like, Astrid, for example, put her question, she's in professional services. What is she going to find when she is meeting these other women interested in boards?
Yeah, so the admissions committee, when they're looking at applicants, they're looking at the person, but not necessarily the industry. They're looking at each person's leadership journey. Now, yes, we do have a lot of people from professional service firms. We've had probably, well, I'd say a significant amount each year. And of course, we've learned a lot from those women. We actually run 2 programs called Leading Professional Service Firms, which is run twice a year on campus. And we certainly understand the value and the tensions that people working in those firms have, both, from an internal growing the business to outward facing managing the clients. So the people that come from those firms have really brought incredible learning to the rest of the cohort. But what's amazing is when people are there, course, we all bring our background with us, but the actual industries, it's interesting in terms of the case discussions, because that's the framework in which people approach cases is based on their background experience. But beyond that, the people just become people, and the industry, functional background, culture, company, none of that really matters, because you just meet people. I mean, we've had, I don't know if you remember, I think it was the year after you, we had someone who was a very well-known in our country Republican come to the program. And I remember she said, "What am I doing in Cambridge?" But she was very well liked because she offered an incredibly unique perspective. And other people shared her perspective, by the way. But again, it's a place where people can safely come together. So we share that graph to show the diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, but it's not like when you look at an application, you say, gee, they're professional service firms, and we look at them different than we would someone from banking or energy or tech.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
I think that's great. And I would say that on board service, what you're describing also starts to become relevant to a board journey as well, because that mirrors, like, as people start to apply for corporate boards, there are definitely preferences for certain things at any given moment in time on a corporate board. But that corporate board may have times when they do need operating experience and other times when they need governance experience. So I think this mixed network that you're in is really important to remember, that diversity of experience is also important for boards more and more as things move along. So we're at the end of our time. Thank you, Vicky, so much for being with us today. And thanks to Helen, she had to step off. And Judy, we're delighted to have you. Judy, I should add, is also chair currently of the Women Execs on Board. So those of us who have graduated from the HBS Executive Ed board programs and joined Women Execs on Boards, WEOB, Judy is our chair, and I love working with her. I also invite you all, if you have any questions, look for me on LinkedIn and just send me a direct message, because I am always happy to speak about these programs and the 9 years since I have participated in it, and the breadth of network expansion. It has been exponential beyond HBS because women come from everywhere, and the board journeys that I have seen my colleagues from the class go on have been varied and successful, and I'm happy to share that experience. So Vicky, you all have her information, and if you need to reach out to her, I have sent her many people over the years that she has spoken to them
Yes.
about the classes, and
Yeah.
they have ended up going on to take it, and reach out to me as well. So thank you to Alexi for running our event today over at HBSWA side. And thank you everybody for participating. We look forward to staying in touch and offering more board content on new topics as we go along. Vicky, thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of the opportunity and engaging with this wonderful organization at any time. So thank you very much. Nice
Okay.
seeing everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Vicky.
Bye.